And this is what brands always like explain that they're looking for when they talk about branding, right? They're like, oh, I want to be like Nike. I want to be like Starbucks. I want to be like Apple. And it's like, okay, do you really like that logo or do you like the brand? Do you like the perception of the brand? Because those are two different things, right?
Mhm.
It's like the only reason we can see a swoosh and know that it's for shoes is because it's been put on shoes for 60 years.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
isolated, it doesn't mean anything to anyone, but we're building that brand story.
Kiss my aesthetic, branding, marketing, entrepreneurship.
Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. We have two guests for the price of one today. Welcome, Giovanni, and welcome, Tony.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us,
Woohoo.
Michelle.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be a great conversation. It's a little bit different. We're usually, talking to designers, marketers, people that are on the creative side, but I'm so excited to dive into your business, Queen Street Bakery. But tell us who you are, what you do, and who you help.
Go ahead, Tone.
I'm Tony. I'm the president of Queen Street Bakery. We provide a nutrition-packed, gluten-free, allergen-friendly bread, bagels, and buns to the masses. We're really proud of our products. We think it helps a lot of people. And yeah, that's what we do.
Amazing. We were talking just briefly before we got on to explain about the whole story, but maybe Giovanni, you can tell us a bit about how this company came to be in the first place.
So I'm Giovanni. I'm the founder of Queen Street Bakery. We got into this really by accident in a way that we just wanted to get into the food business and find a gluten-free product for my mom who was intolerant, something that she'd be okay to eat, that she was happy to eat, that actually provided nutritional value. And the reason that we got into this was we were able to create a product that I would eat and I'm not gluten intolerant. And so we said, okay, maybe there's something here, because if you can give something that tastes and toasts amazing and is functional, has ingredients the ingredients are things that your body needs, we could turn this into a real business. And so we gave it a shot. We had our 7th birthday recently, and we just told the story in depth of how we got into it. And we said it was never supposed to be something huge or multinational. But when you provide a good product, eventually it will grow. And so kind of caught on. And now it's this thing where at first we sold across Ontario and then across Canada, and now into the US as well. And it's gotten so much bigger than we expected. And with that comes growing pains and growing challenges. But all of that, very exciting.
Oh, and so much to even go into with all of that. I'm a super foodie myself. My mom is also gluten intolerant, so I'm going to have to get her some Queen Street Bakery after this. But I think I'm so fascinated by just like the food landscape and CPG in general. I'm part of a group here called Naturally San Diego, which is like a foods networking group, which is always so fascinating. But I think my own curiosity and watching a lot of Shark Tank and all of these things and doing brand design is kind of figuring out where that gap is in the market. So as you were getting started, again, you were just kind of looking to bake stuff for your things that your mom could eat, things that you would like, would toast well and taste good. What were you noticing that was like really lacking? Like what were the current gluten-free offerings and where do you feel like they fell short where your product, like you really saw runway?
So we've grown up cooking and baking and making foods my whole life. My grandparents were Italian immigrants. My mom immigrated. So we've just been around food our whole life, and we know what can and should go into some foods and what shouldn't. There is a lot of salt and sugar and ingredients that should not be in products, everyday products that don't need it, but they find their way in. And what we started to realize, and we realize every single day, and it's even more evident every single day that we're in this business, is that food, for the most part, mass food, it's made for distribution and operation and not made with your health in mind as the first and foremost priority. Because the healthiest possible food, and fair enough, the healthiest possible food may not be something you can actually deliver across the country before it gets moldy or gets stale. So there is some element of that. But where profit and the profit motive comes in, and all businesses do need to make money, I'm not saying it shouldn't, but there has to be a healthy balance. And we've definitely tipped in the way of how can we make products more cost effective instead of how can we make them better for you and then provide that at the best possible price point for customers to be able to afford it. So that's our take on it. It doesn't mean that we can be all things to all people, but we just started to see that the gluten-free products that were out there were all undersized. So a slice was this big instead of a proper slice for non-gluten. They were made with the same ingredients, rice and corn flour, but that's because those are also cheaper and much easier to bake with. And then, of course, the shape and size and texture have to fit within existing production lines. Because a lot of people co-pack their product these days. So we came at it from a different approach. We've manufactured our own products since day one, which gives us ultimate flexibility on ingredients, ingredient sourcing, tin types, sizes, bake efficiency, freezing times, everything that would matter And because of that, we can ultimately decide what goes in and what, more importantly, doesn't go into our product, and constantly just look at, is this the best thing that we could feed to our family, our friends, and our consumers?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Fascinating. And
Yeah.
really, like when you do have that control over the whole like production process, like you can go in and fix the things as they arise. Where like maybe one of these big companies, they're like, it's our gluten-free thing. Like who cares? Like send it out kind of idea. So I love that you've got this kind of hyper focus, even though I was kind of cruising through your site and your socials, and talk to us a little bit about your ingredient formulation. And then we'll get into all the good like branding and marketing stuff, which is my favorite thing to talk about. But as a foodie, I got to know, I'm always so curious of like, how do you make something that we know as bread still tastes like and look like bread when it's made not of totally like wheat flour? So talk to us about that part.
Well, that part's a lot of fun. There's a lot of taste testing that comes in with that. Hundreds of iterations of products. We've eaten so many different kinds of breads, bagels, English muffins, you name it. We've just eaten so many, and it's hard because it becomes very nuanced, right? You know, how refined is your palate? Sometimes I'm like, I can't really tell. These both taste great. So sometimes the macros define or the ingredients define what you go with. But we started from a baseline of what are really good things that you're supposed to eat. Right? You're supposed to, your dietitian, your nutritionist, your doctor, they tell you to eat more beans. They tell you to have more fiber. They tell you to have more protein. They tell you to have more seeds. Right? Not too many doctors are saying, hey, you need a lot more rice in your diet. Right? Not too many doctors are saying like, you really need to up your corn intake. So we didn't start from that basis. We started from, okay, I got to eat beans and seeds anyway. Is it even possible to mill that into a flour and bake it into your bread? Is there a way to do that? And so our very first SKUs were bean-based SKUs that gave us a really hearty taste and texture and feel. But they also gave us a good fiber and protein content, and depending on the bean, some sweetness. Then we moved into our chia line and started incorporating chia seeds, milled chia flours in there. And then from there into other superfoods like sorghum and millet, all while trying to take out any unnecessary sugars and high grading any ingredients. So you'll notice in a lot of our products, if Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe all now, we have swapped out, for example, vegetable oils in favor of olive oil. Right. So these highly processed seed oils that we know now are not good for you, we've swapped it out for olive oil. It's 8 times the price. That is something that we deem worthwhile. It's almost like every single day we're trying to figure out a way to make our product cost us more, which is the opposite of every food manufacturer. But that is also because we know that means you're coming at it with better ingredients, and the right consumer, the person that matters to, will pay for that. Maybe not every day. Maybe it's only a part of their diet, but it will be a better part of their diet than maybe the alternative that has sugar, a highly processed wheat flour, grown with the wrong kind of pesticides and things that just upset them. They have our product as that alternative. So we're always looking for new ingredients. We're always looking for different things that can bake well. And part of the reason we manufactured from the start was our products are really hard to bake with. Our ingredients are not typical baking ingredients. And so they didn't work in traditional lines. They didn't work in traditional machines. And we had to come up with our own processes to make that work. And though difficult up front, now it's something that we're really proud of and we continue to lean into.
And it becomes part of that brand ethos, right? Like you have your mission and your vision from the get-go, which was like, make something tasty and make it gluten-free. And now it's like, okay, we're not willing to budge on this kind of stuff. And I love hearing those statements as a brand designer, because those are the things to me that I'm always asking our clients, like, what are your non-negotiables? Because that should really be the forefront of the brand. When it comes to the actual branding portion, you said you've been in business 7 years. How did you land on the name? How did you land on the look? Like, how did you get the brand to what it is looking like now, like on the consumable side?
Great. Yeah. So we landed on Queen Street Bakery. There wasn't a whole Ipsos study and consumer groups. It was very early stage. We need to get some bags out there to put it on a few of the local stores that were willing to take our product when we first started. But our thought process was Queen Street Bakery feels local. It feels artisan. It feels homemade. It feels close to home. And there's a Queen Street in a lot of towns and a lot of cities. And so we figured, how can we make it feel like your local bakery, except it's produced in such a way that we can do it gluten-free and whatever, and at scale, and get it to your local market. So we kind of wanted to feel like that neighborhood shop close to home. And so we landed on Queen Street Bakery.
A key point of this is like, we're from Canada. We're from Toronto. So like, it's funny, when we first started this, we didn't think, we thought we would always be like Greater Toronto area, like our local municipality. We never thought we were going to be expanding to the US and being national in the US. So in Canada, Queen Street, there's a Queen Street in every major city in Canada. So like, we're like, okay, that makes sense. But it's actually funny, that name doesn't actually translate as well as here in the US.
Yeah, in Southern California, we don't have too much Queen Street.
And that's why I thought it would be important for you to realize that.
We gotta get some renaming rights down there. We gotta start pushing some streets, some subdivisions to change their name.
Yeah. So for us, the brand came from just being like your local bakery. We wanted that feeling to come on, but obviously the brands evolve. You start seeing what consumers what they relate to your brand. Again, we didn't do all these crazy research studies at the beginning. We just started producing product and started selling it, started getting people, and
what
then
do they say? Building the wings as the plane is flying, something like that.
Fixing the plane while it's in the air. Like we just started selling, and we've over the years we've heard, we get a lot of feedback, and we see what resonates with the brand, and we reinforce some things in some areas. But it is a funny story. And now, like Queen Street Bakery, that's who we are. That's our history. So even though it's not as relatable to maybe someone in Dallas, Texas, like where I am right now, like they might assume that we're from Queens, New York, and I'm like, no, I'm actually Canadian. But you know, like it's still part of who we are. So we think it's important, but that's where the name came from.
Amazing. Giovanni, talk to us a little bit more about how that then translates as the brand and as the beginning first few sales into the packaging of the thing. Because so much of the conversation with CPG, or Tony, take it as well with the question, so much of CPG is the actual first impression of the packaging, especially if someone doesn't get the opportunity to taste, try, smell, eat, whatever, like interact with your product. You got to really communicate so much visually from the exterior. Talk to us about the evolution from like beginning packaging to where you are now.
Yeah, when we first did the packaging, the first real packaging design, I mean, the very first package was just a clear bag with an insert. Like, you know,
that was the very first one. That was the very first clear bags. And you know what? I think what's important, I think the best packaging that I see nowadays is ones that really, yes, it catches consumers' attention. But I think the things that have longevity is when your packaging does speak to the ethos of your brand as well, and the product design. I think that's like, you hit all three. If you can hit all three things, like, does it speak to your brand, the ethos of it, and the product design? Sometimes not all packaging does, because like they want to stand out so much, but it doesn't even translate as much to the brand or the product. But so our original brand and our brand name, everything was about, it was like a local feel. We wanted it to feel like an artisan local feel. So when you go to a local bakery, it is usually in a clear bag with just a sticker on it saying what the product is, what the ingredients. So we try to keep it. That's the original products didn't match that. Our second iteration had a photo of a streetcar, kind of like what you see in San Fran type of, like we have those in Toronto a lot. So again, we were reiterating that we were artisanal. This is made by somebody, you know, with good ingredients, not commercialized. So a lot of our early iterations of our packaging followed along with what our brand origin story was and what we started with, but obviously it has evolved.
An early stage, right? So
exactly.
Somebody told us early on, hey, when you have bread or packaging that doesn't have any show through, that means you got something to hide. So we're like, okay, great, let's put maximum show through on this product. In the last 7 years, that has changed. People don't need to have the show through as much anymore. It doesn't matter. Photography's gotten so good. So these things have changed on us and evolved as we've grown up as well. And of course, if you don't have show through, you can do more call outs on the bag, or you can do more colors and changes. So it's providing opportunities, but the old adages sometimes of packaging seem to be moving, and we're learning with it and growing up with it.
Yeah, it's a really interesting space because we're in the process of designing packaging for a canned cocktail company. And we're looking at, you take a picture of the shelf at Bevmo or Wine Plus, whatever, and you're looking at, okay, this is a crowded space. What color is not represented? What style is not represented? Where is our opportunity? Because similar to you guys, like they're not going to be able to just like crack one open in the middle of the store. So like asking that customer to make the purchase or a product that they've never tried before, but maybe they heard about, it's like you do have to figure out what is the most important thing. So with this canned cocktail client, she's very passionate about it being woman-owned business. And as am I, obviously, as a woman-owned business. But that may not be the thing, the tipping point to get the person to buy the thing. And so it's like, does that deserve real estate on the front of the box, or can that be a side panel? So we've had all these conversations about like, how do you even start to rank the information that's going to be most pertinent to the person who's buying it? Have you guys had those kind of discussions in the packaging design process? And what are things that you've kept, and what are things that have gone by the wayside as you've edited down?
Oh, we've had those conversations ad nauseum. And if you look at our bag now, it's almost like we couldn't decide. We've got so many benefits to our product
Of course.
that, we don't. If it would be easy if we were the high protein bread, but we're not. Our
Sure.
product has a good amount of protein, but there are higher protein breads out there, and our product has a good amount of fiber, but there are higher fiber products out there. And so there isn't this one call out that we can put on, but we've got 100% of your daily omega-3s, and we've got high iron, like more iron than spinach in a slice of our bread. And you're made with all of these ingredients you're supposed to eat anyway. So what do you call out? We don't know. So we put it all on there. And then you've got this crowded bag that doesn't really work. So now we're in the process of refining that. What is most important to the consumer?
Sure.
Do you want to provide it all? And I use this example all the time. A Dr. Bonner's bottle, if you ever read, it's loaded with information, but that is what they went with. And so there is packaging like that can work, but obviously the aesthetic these days is a much more clean palette, maybe one or two call-outs or maybe nothing, just the name, and make people intrigued by what's there.
Well, and this is what brands always explain that they're looking for when they talk about branding, right? They're like, oh, I want to be like Nike. I want to be like Starbucks. I want to be like Apple. And it's like, okay, do you really like that logo, or do you like the brand? Do you like the perception of the brand? Because those are two different things, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the only reason we can see a swoosh and know that it's for shoes is because it's been put on shoes for 60 years.
Right.
Exactly. Isolated, it doesn't mean anything to anyone, but we're building that brand story. So how have you guys in the evolution of the business as well, built the brand story around the product? Or how do you bridge that gap between, okay, this is the product on the shelf, maybe you've tried it, but how does that person who's the customer then become part of the Queen Street Bakery universe?
So that's a great question. And, we are still evolving our even brand. And I think we said this before we started the call. We're changing our packaging again for a fourth time in 7 years, because I think the real answer is you learn over time. There are very few CPG brands that have their original packaging. Very, 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 very few. If you look at a lot of the most recent buyouts of the Siete Foods, the Simple Mills, all these large, it's a different packaging. They're all different packaging when they started early on, because as I mentioned earlier, you have an idea as a founder of what you want to be the most important about your brand, but I can tell you so passionately, your customers will tell you over time. Once you get to a certain size and you start getting tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers, you start listening to them of what resonates with them and what has been, your packaging evolves. So we have gone from super simple to adding a bunch of things, and we're going to go back to simple again. In the end, we're just taking we're listening a lot more to our customers, and it's easier to do once you've had a few years in the market and actually are able to receive that. When you're a very early brand, you don't have that luxury. You only get to listen to your partner and your parents and your best friends as your feedback for your what your brand decides should be, and what your mood board looks like. Eventually you get to listen to customers, and you hear what resonated with them about the brand, or what makes them come back again and again and again. And that's always my biggest advice to people, is we need to listen to what actually ends up being the most important versus what we think is the most important. And then we rally behind that, and we lean into those features or benefits, or what part of our brand story did people really, really resonate with? What part maybe not as much, so they go to the side and back panels versus to the front. Standing on a shelf is super important. To your point, what's important to the brand, but what will catch the attention? It's a fine balance. I don't think there is a formula where everyone would get it right. Packaging also ebbs and flows. There's a trend for 5 years, and then it changes again for the next 5 years. It is so quick. 5 years might be even too gracious. 3 years.
Yeah.
There's
True.
You see a cohort of new packaging that comes out for a few years, and then it changes again. So I think in the end of the day, if you deliver a clear message, again, does your packaging resonate to your product and brand? I think over time, that's going to win out over time. You might get lucky with something that stands out on shelf. You might get lucky. One in 100 brands get it done right, 1 in 1,000. But I think more likely if you try to aim for something that speaks to your brand the most, you have better luck in the long term getting that customer to remember an impression from your packaging or your product after they tried it.
And we've spent so much time recently in the last year or two trying to synthesize down to a line, a 1 point, one word,
a color.
Yeah. How are you getting across that value proposition for your product? It's why previously we spent so much time on the product itself, because our thinking as a young business was, even if the packaging isn't right, if people try it and they like it, they're going to come back, bad packaging or not. And they're going to tell some people about it. In the absence of that, until we're ready to know what we're doing, let's not spend money there. We've realized now we need to spend money because it's growing and it's getting to that point where they need to discover it on shelf. But we've put so much into the product and we're really proud of that. And now it's, how do you get it discovered? And then how do you tell that? This is a long story, right? We don't have one value prop where it's all protein or it's all fiber or it's all whatever. We spent the last 18 months doing demos. You notice Tony's down in Dallas because we can actually have people try this product in the store, tell them about it, see their face, get their feedback, and then show them where they buy it. That's hard to do for 350 million people. Obviously.
Of course.
But,
which was going to be my next question is like, we're always harping on our clients, like get audience feedback, get audience feedback, get audience feedback. Our tagline is like, we like to build brag-worthy brands. And the only way people brag about a brand is if they're super passionate about it and they had a great experience, because we believe that like social referral is your greatest currency, right? Like someone raving about a product unprompted is way better than any paid Instagram ad, any influencer, any of this stuff, right? So how are you guys, besides just getting products in people's hands in these like in-person settings, do you have a system for surveys or intake? Like what's been that process looking like? Or is it truly just organic? Like we're getting ourselves in front of our customer and we're just listening to them. Like what does that feedback process look like on the Queen Street side?
Yeah, you made such a good point. Putting in a process to get feedback is something you should do very early on in the brand. Like you should always be keeping that in mind and setting up the infrastructure to do that. So ours is a 3-prong approach. We do a lot of in-person, in real life activations. There's not many people I know who do more than us. We do hundreds a year with our core team, not just like we pay third parties to do it. Cause like
we go ourselves. And
we go ourselves. And
when people meet the owners and the bakers, they're like, oh, whoa, I'm hearing the story from the source. That's something they go and tell people about as well. Right. And our customers are smart. The people who buy our product are smart. They know their stuff. They care about their bodies. They care about their like they're telling us stuff about ingredients that I'm like, wow, that's a very nuanced point. I'm surprised you know that. And so then they start vibing with you, right? And they say, oh, okay, you get it. I get it. You're making it for me because you're making it for your family. It's great. So we found the demos to be like, this is why Tony's, he's always boots on the ground and we go as much as we can, as much of the senior team as possible. And so you get some of that feedback from them live, but we love doing demos.
Over time, we've collected a lot of emails. We don't, and the primary focus for us is not just emails to resell them later. It's to get true feedback. People can tell when you're just trying to get fake feedback back, and sometimes like asking truly, asking because we're like, hey, we have questions. We do surveys very often. Maybe not. I'm not gonna say we bother people every 2 weeks, but like a few times a year we check in with our audiences for different types of questions. So even how we organize our emails of who have we asked what, how often. We've tried to be very structured in how we've organized that feedback. When we've done partnerships with influencers and content creators and stuff, we obviously do partnerships and we do campaigns with them, but then we ask them for true feedback after, actually a few weeks later. And then a few weeks later, we give them the results of that feedback, being like, hey, we heard you, what you said. And you, by the way, in common with other content creators during this. When we launched in Whole Foods nationally back in October. We did a 350 person content creator national campaign. We emailed them after, like we asked them about the packaging. What did you think about the brand? Did you check that? Or did it encourage you to check the website? Was it easy to read? Did you recommend it to a friend? Why did you? What attribute? And then we gave them the results back, being like, hey, just so you know, thank you so much for giving that time. Because we're actually going to use it. And by the way, here's 3 points that we're actually going to take from your feedback. So guess what? The next time we ask them for feedback again in a year, they're more likely to answer because they're like, oh, they actually listened last time. So I think it's really important developing an internal system to select feedback and making sure it's looping back so that you continue actually building a relationship with people, like even detractors, even like people give you your opinion. Those are very valuable. Getting feedback from detractors who might not have loved the product is really important. And if they hear it, they're like, oh, like maybe it wasn't for me, but actually my brother-in-law loved it. And they continue giving us feedback about things like that. And I think that's how you get true, actual feedback from people who are not in your immediate circle. But it's important to meet back with them.
I just saw a post fly by before we even started this interview. I think it was New York Times. They were doing a piece on the Shirley Temple kid that like does the reviews of the Shirley Temples. And the purpose of the post was like, critics are created to make products better. Like the reason that you're a critic is to be able to improve the products that are out there. It's not just to bash on or roast companies or roast brands. Like we need critics because it levels everybody up. As you've heard me say time and time again on this podcast, what worked in 2024 for social media management is not the same as what's going to cut it in 2025. Platforms are shifting, algorithms are chaotic, and keeping up feels like playing whack-a-mole in the wild, wild west. That's exactly why we made our 2025 social media webinar. This is the deck that we actually sent to our clients. It's 65 slides long. And in the 45-minute webinar, I basically walk you through all the platforms, who owns them, their involvement with the current political administration, what are the pros and cons of each platform, what content performs best, as well as what our team would need for strategy, content creation, and posting and engagement to run the strategy on behalf of your brand. So whether you're a small business owner looking to work with us, or you're also a social media manager or creative just trying to get a better grip of the social media landscape, this is a resource you're going to want to take advantage of. You want to head to our website, mkwcreativeco.com/resources. So mkwcreative.co/resources. This is the 2025 social media webinar. And just for you, I included the one-pager reference guide that we've also sent to our clients to really give you the full menu of options in one big flash sheet. So take advantage of it or hit the link in the show notes to get access to our 2025 social media webinar, because it is wild out there and you shouldn't have to figure it out by yourself. Good luck. Enjoy. Giovanni, what other things are you guys employing on the internal side that helps you level up either your process or your marketing or growing your team, evolving your team, finding creatives to work with? Talk to us about some of the nitty gritty of like finding those good partnerships.
We've got a really strong team internally. We always have to balance as a small company trying to be cash burn with spend, but we never want to be penny wise and pound foolish. So we're constantly trying to find ways to do things as be as gritty as possible and get out there. Even like we found you just by reaching out. Our team reached out to you directly, but just saying, hey, we think we've got a cool story. Do you want to have us on? We're going through so many things, and we'll give you all the feedback about what we do right from the source and exactly how it is. We've built our entire network of content creators and folks that we work with for launches, all organically, people who tended to eat our products. Sometimes, a lot of times they were posting about our product anyway. So we'd reach out like, oh, you naturally like it. Can you want to become part of this Queen Street Bakery family? And we found that it's always easier to sell something you actually believe in. And so we try to naturally work with people who like our stuff. And then find ways like this to tell our story to more people, right? I can tell the story at a demo, but now telling it to you, you're going to tell it to thousands more people. That also helps as well. And then they'll go out and tell a few others. So we're constantly looking at ways to do things cost effectively, because we don't have millions of dollars to put on a Super Bowl ad or to put on constant repackaging. And things are expensive, as you know, like every iteration of a bag, the plates you got to make and the different color, and for all the different SKUs, like these have actual feedback into like, how many SKUs do we really want to have? Like, should we be rationalizing our SKU count here? Because I got to print new bags every time I change to olive oil. I got to print it. I got to change it for everything.
Are you guys watching Severance?
Oh, I haven't watched. I'm saving. Honestly,
oh my goodness,
is it
you
good?
have to watch Severance. But I literally made a post today saying like my graphic designer. The concept, right? Like they get the chip implanted. There's the innies and the outies. There's the people that work, and then you're someone else when you go home. And I made a joke on my social today. Like my graphic designer Innie is definitely working on like the 7,846th version of that packaging for that one client. Because it's always the case. It's like, do we have our USDA? Are we truly organically certified? We're not. Okay, there's this version of the packaging. There's that version of the packaging. There's this color variation. There's this one with the foil and the emboss and the cutouts and the see-throughs. Like packaging projects can be absolute time sucks, and you can be having to make the same decision over like the tiniest little detail. So it is like, I feel for you guys on that, because it is a total grind on the packaging.
It's a grind, and there's so many variations that are so cool. We talked about it, like designing a house or picking a wedding ring. Like you go try to pick a diamond. Let's say you want to. It only looks a certain way relative to a bunch of other diamonds. So it only looks really bright or really yellow or too big relative to all the other ones. And when you see dozens beside each other, different kinds of white or blue, like I don't know if one slight shade is better than, I'm going with my gut feel, but it's almost better to have less choice.
Right.
because it just makes things a little bit simpler.
And you're also, then you're putting yourself in the mind of the consumer, right? Like they're in Sprouts or they're in Whole Foods or whatever, and they're looking at all their choices. Like what is going to be those deciding factors? But I'm curious back on kind of like the staff and the hiring side of things, as most of the people that listen to this show are designers and marketers and creatives. What are the parts that you guys as like a CPG brand, like stand out to you as someone that like, oh gosh, we would love to work with these people. Like this really summarizes it. Like, is it the copywriting? Is it their portfolio aesthetic? Are you looking for someone that does things in your style? Or are you looking for someone that does something that's totally different that'll push you guys into a new realm?
I've actually got some thoughts on this that I gave Tony as an overarching rule, because then he was actually in the day-to-day, like how do I select and work within that? For us, because we work, we're cash constrained and you have to make sure you're spending properly. We have been through a few agencies or been through a few experiences, and not through their fault, probably I'd say more so through our fault about knowing what to expect, is just who's right for your size and time, and how do you make sure that what you pay for is what you want. And so, when we were looking at doing this packaging design, it was like, okay, look, there's a lot of tools at our disposal. How can we find somebody that is willing to speak their mind, but is okay to take our feedback in our direction? So they're strong will without being proud, I guess would be the question. And are they flexible enough, right? Like if we're going to go out and design packaging, I should be able to A/B test dozens of packages. Now you have to create dozens of packages. So can we find somebody who's up to date enough with the tools to give you a variety of different packages that you can then narrow down, and then you bring those to, let's say, some focus group or friends and family and whatever. So, I think the old world the existing model or previous model, which was, hey, I'm going to think up a bunch of ideas. I'm going to charge you for it. And if you don't like any of them, I'm sorry, but here's my bill for $100,000. And I'm sitting there going, well, that may work if you're Starbucks or whoever or Kellogg's, but we're a startup. So I love the grand ideas, but I can't pay for them for stuff I'm not going to action on. So we need to find a balance here where you're not giving out a bunch of your time for nothing. And I get there's a pain point for that small business owner on the creative side. But I also, like, if you come up with 3 campaigns and none of those are really actionable for me right now, it's hard to justify paying for that.
Completely. No, because you bring up a really good point, because I think that this is what our team is talking about a lot as well. Is like our bread and butter is branding. So if you need the new brand aesthetic, that is the thing. That is the do not pass go, do not collect $200. We're not working on anything else until we get the brand in order. But for when we are doing packaging, what we're noticing is like it's really hard to quote that accurately when you don't. They don't even know what they need. They don't even know the regulations and the things that they need on the box. They don't even have die lines yet. They don't even know who they're using there as their co-packer. Like there's way too many variables. So instead of quoting it as like a true packaging project, we've ended up quoting things as creative partnership, and the creative partnership on a sliding scale based on needs. So like, obviously you're going to need more hours leading up to your like soft launch tasting party than you are going to need in your dead zone when you're in R&D. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting. But I think what creatives can do now is, if they have like industry knowledge and this is the type of thing that they want to do, is you're totally right, finding the match of like size and experience and expertise and price point with size, experience, expertise of the business, and then like growing together until that business can take someone in-house, which I've helped with that transition as well. It's like we worked with a company that I worked with them for 5 years, and then they're like, yep, we're at the point where we're going to take in a full-time employee at 70, 80K a year, and they're going to basically follow the recipe that you set for the company, and we'll just consult you, we'll engage you as a consultant. And that works fine too. It's like figuring out that stepping stone. I think our team has gotten really comfortable being the team that wants to work with the company until they're ready to take on that full-time person, like kind of shepherd them through that and be like, okay, fly, be free, but it's hard. It was like it had to be an ego thing for me as a business owner too, of like, oh, you mean we're not going to work together forever? Like, you know what I mean? Like you outgrow each other in a way.
You do. There are the right people or consultants or partners for the right stages and the wrong stages in business. So this person who takes you from year 1 to 3 may not be the person that takes you from year 3 to 5, or the person that takes you from 5 to 10. The person you need to hire to manage a team of 1,000 is different than the person you need to be a doer when it's a team of 6, but they need to be actioning as much as well in all aspects of business. And it's not just creatives in this world that is under pressure to change, right? Like one of the examples I always say with Tony is, if you can list your house on the market and it sells for $1 million, a realtor should get paid on the delta between what you could sell it for yourself in the open market by placing it and what they can eventually get for you for that house, because that is their effect on it, not just the market forces. So those kind of things are changing, right? We're seeing it as well for online advertising. More and more companies are willing to say, okay, give us the budget. Here's your baseline. You've got a 12-month baseline. We will take a certain percentage of the increase in sales based on this for flat, same spend or whatever. So, if you increase my sales, great. I'm happy to give exactly what you've earned and what we agreed upon, but I'm not going to spend 30 grand on online advertising and then it leads to nothing.
Sure. And
So,
it just makes sense because it's more like, even social media is a great example, right? The whole landscape of social media is so different than it was 5 years ago. We have so many more platforms. Like TikTok is up, TikTok is down. Zuckerberg is doing something weird over here. Like Elon with the Twitter. Like there's nowhere to. It gives people whiplash, and what they don't understand is like there's still this understanding or assumption that putting money into marketing means I'm turning on the faucet for sales, and that is like could not be. They're related, but that is not the truth, right? Like there's so many steps and so many things that need to happen, and I'm sure you guys have learned, like, rubber to the road marketing wise. Like, okay, well, we tried that didn't work, so now we're gonna go over here. Maybe Tony, you can think of some marketing efforts that flopped or some cautionary tales to share with your fellow business owners of like how you guys were able to pivot from something that you thought was going to be good and then ended up kind of maybe going nowhere.
Yeah, a few thoughts. One, I would reiterate Giovanni's point about like sometimes you have to have the right partner at the right time for the right size of CPG, like that for sure. Like we had some like we went with bigger PR agency, media agencies who their clients were Starbucks and Uber. We were their first small CPG in only a few stores. Our retainer was bigger than everything else we did on everything. And that was a mistake. It was not the right size of agency for the size of company. In the end, it's going to do more harm than good for both parties. The agency world works on a referral system. All right. So like, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to tell every CPG company, don't do it. You're going to get burned by these agencies. So an agency should also think, hey, I can maybe get them, but I'm not going to deliver to the end results that they want. They shouldn't take on a project either for a client that they're not used to working with. If you're a big agency with like a normal agency that has like multiple levels with a very small brand, it's not going to work out unless you have such clear expectations. And I think sometimes both sides, like CPG founders, might not understand the expectations, and the agencies are too scared to set expectations. Exactly. So on both sides, it doesn't work often. You can overcome that if both sides and both just people are people. So if you just have good people on both sides, have that good conversation, it can work. But more often than not, in my experience, and the brands who I speak to, and I'm friends with a lot of people in agency too now, more often than not, it doesn't work. So I just think clear conversations need to be had at the beginning before onboarding product, because recommend them. I think agency, and this happens in other industries. Hey, you know what? I'm probably too big for you. Have someone that you can refer to that's a smaller independent right off the bat, and then they'll do that eventually back to you as well. Once a brand evolves and you do start going with larger agencies like we are today, now we do work with a large agency. We have the knowledge and experience to even work with them. So we're good partners as well. Better. Like I'm a way better partner I am today than 6 years ago when we worked with the first agency. I just understand how to work with an agency more. And I know how they work, so I can think ahead to like foresee problems. And I know when we get to that stage, there's going to be a problem. Are you going to charge me more there? Are you going to do this there? Like those conversations are just so much better at the beginning. So I do recommend that, because we did some of these early on. We were pitched a bunch of PR ideas and we're like, well, we couldn't afford any of those anyways. But by the way, this meeting cost $20,000 to pitch us these three mass media ideas.
These big hits on national syndicates that like isn't going to have any conversion. Not going to
have any conversion for how small we are, because we're only in that natural local store in my neighborhood. So
of course.
So I think that's something we work with. And to answer your early question of how we pick agencies now, this is my own personal thing. I like people who have an opinion and a point of view on my product and category beforehand. Now that might not be everybody's also thinking, but especially when I'm small, I don't have time and risk for someone to learn my category industry and pay for it and really pay for them to go learn and spend a lot of time. If they've never even heard of my category, because you might be in some specialty product niche category, that's just something I value more. So my recommendation to the agencies, like research ahead of time. I've been pitched. We just went through it. We talked to many agencies. Some you can clearly see which ones were more prepared than others in terms of category knowledge. So, and when you're small, I don't
on the
have
creative side, it looks like being honest, right? Like we get contact forms all the time where either the budget's not there, or you're right, they're like not the right size, or it's an industry niche that I don't have experience in. That person is going to be such better served by me referring them to someone that can actually help them than for me to try to muscle my way through a project that's not a good fit. And like the thing is if we're all in the business of helping people, like, okay, so I help that person now, who knows where I'm going to be in 5 years? Maybe I will have experience in their niche in 5 years, and then we can talk again, right? Like that, I think that keeping that kind of abundance mindset as a creative is really important, because at the end of the day, you want to serve the client the best. And if you're not honest,
and I don't
about
mean
your
super niche. I don't need you, for example, I'm a bread. I'm not saying you need to have done another bread, but like even like if you, I've met agencies who specialize in health and beauty, like wellness and beauty, like that type, not food. Like even like that type of or large restaurants is different than a CPG product. I just mean like you should have a good point of view on what works on shelf and what the competition is doing, so you can see what's going to stand out.
Right.
Because I think that's going to be the best results for everybody.
I also,
totally agree.
Tone, for creatives, I think this worked for us on the recent find, and you were really involved in finding it with Alana and the team and Alicia. But if you're a creative and you actually have a strong point of view and that type of customer comes across, don't be shy to say, I think I've got a really good idea here. And I really think we can work on this, right? For somebody to say like, I've thought about this before, it's something I've looked at. It's as good to say I have no experience in this as it is to say I have really good thoughts around this and I really want this project.
Or it's a personal interest of mine, or it's a family interest of mine, or it's something that's always been like, I'm super passionate about food, so I love working with food brands because I love food. So I was like, a lot of people like food, but you know what I mean? Like you got to kind of bridge that gap. You guys will laugh because we just got stickers made, because I always joke about how branding is our bread and butter. And so I have like the logo as bread and butter. So that's our little food pun. But yes, I'm with you completely. This has been so insightful. I could talk to you guys forever about the brand, but we got to tell people where they can try and eat the bread, because I feel like people are going to want to taste test this stuff.
I would say the easiest place to find our products is nationally in Whole Foods. That's where our widest distribution of. You can find all of our bagels there. I would say go to our website, queenstreetbakery.com, our store locator. We are in regional and state retailers all across the U.S. So depending on what state you are, we might be in other retailers there. But the easiest one that anyone would recognize is Whole Foods across the country.
Amazing. And then Giovanni, where can we like follow along, I'm assuming recipes and all kinds of fun behind the scenes videos, things like that. Well, I know that because I looked at your Instagram before, but plug the socials too.
Yeah, at Queen Street Bakery, you see a lot of our stuff on there. We've got a website that's super helpful for seasonal recipes, things like that. Any updates to our ingredients and why we choose those things for people that matters to. That's really important. We post it on there. And then, of course, sign up. We do a lot with emails. We don't bombard. We're as much a company as we are a consumer for other products. So we know not to send too much, but we do send out these surveys. We do actually ask for feedback. We do send out some of these recipes and sometimes things that aren't worthy of a website change, but are great to get out to our customers. So, when you go to the page, you can put in your email or you can sign up for our website. Follow us on Instagram. It's really popular. And of course, look for us in store. We're out there all the time and telling that story. And maybe you've, come up to us if you heard us on KMA and tell us you heard the story. Because for us, we love to meet all of our customers. I find that when we do, they become a customer for life. Because they really start to, it's us. We're the ones that literally make and produce and sell, and everything that goes into this business, it comes with us and the rest of our team. And so what we're really trying to build is trust, that we have your best interests and your health at heart, and we'll only make a change if it is for the better. And so that's what we try to tell people. And that really resonates with folks who want to be able to go to the store and just buy something they don't have to read and not know if it's something that they're supposed to eat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, guys. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to send it to a friend, save it, share it, comment, like it, all the things. Find us on YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much, you guys, for your time today. I'm definitely going to Whole Foods after this, going to get some bread. I know my mom's going to love it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, guys. Bye.